Welcome back. It's time for Driving Maul on Loud Radio, where blokes judge rugby every Tuesday right here, 11 a.m. Central African time. Sharks, good morning.
You can always hear when Don is in a flat spin, he dawdles and talks cuck and all sorts of stuff. Dude, you just got to chill out. How you doing? I wish everyone could have seen that because that was quite funny.
Yeah,
you trying to run up to the door with your headphones on.
Yeah, I suddenly realized we had 4 seconds and I was dicking around on other stuff.
Correct. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How's the body after Cape Town 10s?
Body was sore yesterday, and it was a lot worse on Sunday, and neck and stuff. But I tell you, the thing that took the most pain was my face from the sun.
Not your liver.
No, mate. I actually was working. There was 7s on, and I didn't partake in this, the most important part of 10s, which would be the drinking. But what another unbelievable event.
The fan's now blown my papers off the desk. I was about to say
Don,
that
I'm used to it,
I thoroughly enjoyed my first sojourn down to the 10s on Friday. Rugby talent, more talent, rugby playing talent too.
Yeah, and
sunshine, and I managed to stay very, very well hydrated throughout the event, and all I can say is if that's as loose as it gets by 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, I dread to think what it's like after dark on a Saturday.
Yeah, well, just to fill everyone in, Cape Town 10s is the biggest 10-man rugby tournament in the world,
and growing.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly on the amount of teams, but I think it's about 80 odd teams.
There was 100 teams this year.
100, and about 24,000 people come through the gates over the 2 days. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a fantastic draw. It's been going. Sorry, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but for 7 years, and it's been great. They've got a vet section, which is probably one of the big draw cards, because they have the international legends that play. And for 2 years running now, we've had Carlos Spencer down, who is unbelievable. He's still got the skills. He's still got what it takes. He's built like a brick shit house. And, it's great. The SA legends, the international legends, there's a lot of Springboks playing, a lot of Springboks playing for other teams as well, and international, and provincial players.
Yeah, I counted, just in terms of what I saw playing and warming up, etc., I counted 32 former Springboks floating around across the different teams, excluding the SA Legends side.
Wow. And there's also a hell of a lot of, I know that Dwayne Vermeulen and Ibn Etzebeth and Flo were all down to support and have a little look-see.
No, it was lacquer. And then, I watched the one game, the international legends playing, and Butch James was still hitting rucks like it was a Super Rugby final. And some lovely handling skills. Christian Cullen floating around looked like he wasn't really doing anything, but everything he did was at half pace and still better than most on the park. It was just phenomenal.
Butchie's actually dropped a little bit of weight over the last couple of years, and he's looking in some good nick at the moment. He is putting in the hard hits. I tell you, another guy is Conrad Janchis. He's looking quite lean and mean. He put in a couple of big hits. Anton van Sail just recently retired, also in there. Egon Seconds, Curry Cup winner with Western Province. You know, there are plenty of guys. James Dalton,
Ibn Estebes,
yes, and Graham Smith.
So he was floating around.
He played 2 games for the international legends.
And then I believe that I don't think he played, but I do understand that the big man himself, John Olomu, was floating around on Saturday as well.
Yes, he was there. I saw him briefly. He popped in to come say hi to a few people and have a chat. And I know he's been in town for the last couple of days. He was at the SA Rugby Awards on Sunday, and I know he was with Joel Stransky yesterday, and discussing the 95 World Cup.
Yeah, I also popped in and visited Joost at some stage
yes.
in this week. It's been a busy week in rugby as well this week. It was there's a busy week coming up, I should say. Round 2 of the Six Nations, Vegas Sevens, and of course the ultimate rugby competition is back. Super Rugby kicks off in all its magnificent glory on Friday morning, South African time. But first, the Rugby That Rocks is back. Varsity Cup kicked off yesterday.
Jeez, what a round. What a first round.
I know. I mean, there's already been plenty of dramatic action. 2 draws, 2 penalty tries, a red card in round 1 alone, plus plenty of tries in the Varsity Cup. Pika got up over the Madibas in Potch in a game that had no shortage of drama. There were 10 tries in the game, 5 yellow cards, a sketchy red card for NMMU winger Brian Skosana.
Yeah, it was his second yellow.
Yeah.
But
But it was a sketchy yellow. At
Yeah,
best.
it was a 50-50 challenge in the air.
That's
and,
what I thought. That went to the TMO, who then decided that it was foul play. Anyway, that was the call that was
I
made.
just want to clarify on that. It was his wording that interested me, because I think they might have changed the rules slightly.
He said it's the responsibility of the jumping player to ensure the safety of the opponent. But the opponent was jumping as well. So who's responsible for whose safety?
Yeah, it was
a ludicrous
yeah,
call.
that was the thing, is not one guy had the ball and the other guy competing. They were both in the air for a 50-50 call. It was a shocker. And the irony was that MMU were actually getting worked over. They had a very they had a pre-game injury, and they had a pretty inexperienced side out there with an old grey PE youngster captaining the side who was in matric last year.
Now
they were down, and then they started coming back, and they had the momentum, and then the red card.
Well, that's it. I mean, Picker went 10-0 up. They were 15-5 up at half-time. Picker stretched their lead to 23-13 with just under an hour played. Then the Madibas come back to be 26-23 up with 10 minutes to play. Then that ludicrous card for Skosana. Picker scored 2 tries, including a penalty, tried to run away with it in the end. But a cracker of a game and plenty to debate. In 2 other games that weren't televised, Kurt got introduced to
CUT.
Yeah, they got introduced to Varsity Cup Rugby as UJ ran in 8 tries to leave the Ixias as the only team without a bonus point after the first round. 46-10 the final result there in Bloemfontein. And then in the Tuks Shimla's game, also at Shimla Park in Bloem, 4 tries apiece, 29 all for the draw. And then the final game yesterday, an absolute humdinger of a crackerjack at the Green Mile in Cape Town. UCT 32, Marties 32. Marties looked set to earn revenge for their 2 losses to Ikes in Varsity Cup last year. But the reigning champs fought back superbly in front of their home ground, and a late penalty try earned them a draw. It was 8 all at half-time after a clever Dylan Sage intercept early on, and then a great counter-attack by Marties late on. Then Ikes went 16-8 up early in the second half. Then 3 tries in 15 minutes from Marties, including an absolute gem by young Lewis on the left wing, dancing through and round 4 defenders from 25 out. 32-16, 10 to play. And then, as we said, Ikes come back with the Green Mile absolutely roaring to secure a draw with 3 minutes to play. There still, however, was time for Marties to miss a penalty kick right at the end to win the game.
I actually said so yesterday. I said the irony is this exciting game, and with the rules and the points allocation, they're trying to do away with penalty. Well, not do away, but try and minimize the penalty kicks, as the penalty kick would settle the game. It looked as if it would, and it was quite an interesting miss. It was probably about 20-25 meters out, and he just hasn't struck it well.
And to be clear, there was no wind in Cape Town.
There was wind there. There was a little bit of wind there. It wasn't the usual.
But not wind.
Yeah, it wasn't the
like
usual.
We've seen it at the Green Mile before.
Yeah, it wasn't the usual Green Mile wind. But I tell you, there are 3 players that stood out for me in that game. The Marties captain, their lock, Wilhelm van der Sluys, machine, who was grafting, and he was constantly involved in everything and doing some really, really good tight 5, number 5 lock work. The other player in the backline for Marties was Craig Barry. He's a winger, and he's big, and he was involved. He scored a phenomenal try, but he was involved in everything in the lead up to that. He runs some phenomenal lines, and he's got very quick feet, and off the mark he's blitz. And then the opening try scorer for UCT, Dylan Sage, he's on the wing.
Get in there, Weinberg.
But that kid looks like an outside centre to me. He
is
big, strong, and quick.
Yeah, he was Weinberg captain a year or 2 ago, playing at outside centre, and what I got to see of him just playing in schoolboy rugby, there's definitely a potential for him. And like you say, he's massive.
Big kid, he's 1.8, so he's 6'2", and he's 97 kgs, and he is gas.
And it's 96, 92, and he was actually supposed to be playing outside centre yesterday, but Richard blah blah, somebody, one of the Ikes winger picked up an injury before the game, and Sage got shifted to wing.
I thought he was a centre, and then someone corrected me, says playing a wing, because I actually completely missed it. I just assumed he was a centre.
He got shifted to the wing pre-kickoff because of an injury to the what's his name? He's been the winger for Richard Turner, off the top of my head. Anyway, but the other one that impressed me was Louis on the left wing for Marty. Scored their first try with gas down the outside from
Jean-Paul Lewis.
Yeah, but his second try, spinning and pirouetting and dancing and busting through tackles and dragging a defender over the line to score was very impressive. And like
the time of the game, that try was vitally important. That try was when everyone was like, well, hang on a second, Marties are here to play, and UCT kicked into gear as well, because UCT, there was a lot of niggle going on. They were definitely trying to out-muscle Marties the whole first half, and with an 8-8 scoreline at half-time, it was quite clear what was happening. And then both sides realized, well, hang on, Marties came back, scored some great tries, three in 10 or 15, as you mentioned, and then UCT thought, well, if we don't actually play rugby, we're going to lose the game. So they did neither, and drew.
UCT, the comeback kings.
Phenomenal, yeah.
After their comeback in the final last year, arguably the greatest comeback in the history of world rugby.
So what's up next week on Monday?
Well, next week, Monday, we've got the Madibas taking on CUT in PE. Tuks play UCT in Pretoria. It's UJ Shimlers at Joburg, and Marty's entertain Picker at Stellenbosch, which should be probably the game of the round.
Yeah.
And it certainly looks like sides aren't shy of the odd let's have a crack at each other, because there was plenty of niggle in in the two games that I saw live. And as we said, there were 5 yellow cards and a red in that.
Picker, for me, they unfortunately it just looked for me like they tend to resort to sort of the bad niggle stuff when sides get on top of them and they try and rattle. That's what they did to NMMU.
Who's in charge?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, James Small.
But I tell you one thing, UJ Shimlers is going to be a cracker of a game. Shimlers have got about 4 or 5 guys that started last night that have played Currie Cup rugby.
Okay.
They actually played last year. So they played for the Free State, for the Cheetahs. So they've got some good experience. And like it's 4 or 5. It's a decent core of guys, which I think is going to help Shimlers a little later on. UJ got a great win, but it's against the New Boys CUT. So interested to see what happens.
They will be the Whipping Boys. And are they on the 2-year guaranteed up?
And my understanding is it stays, yeah. So if you get promoted, no one gets relegated that first year of your promotion, which will allow you to build your squad.
And then just a few rule things that have changed, because the white card is back, and it got used by UCT just at the end of the first half badly by them in the end, because there was clearly nothing wrong with the steal by Marties that won them the penalty before they counter-attacked and ran downfield. But the confusion in terms of the captain coming to the ref and wanting to white card, and the ref saying no, but the coach has got to use his microphone or the radio. Anyway, it was hopefully they iron that out, because with 2 referees on the field and a touch judge on either end, plus a white card, and the coach and the captain are entitled to use it. Hopefully we get more right decisions than wrong. And the other one is just the one that I like, is the halfback can't sneak around the back of the scrum.
Yeah, they've changed that, so halfback can't become a pain, I think, or a menace as they call it.
Well, can't be more than he is already.
You know, there was a lot of complaints about the white card yesterday because of the way it was used, and I think it's just the understanding. It just needs clarification in terms of who does what. The one thing that I can say for the Varsity Cup and organising everything is they're very quick to get onto things and sort it out quite quickly, because they want running rugby. They don't want this negativity around the white card. The white card was used exceptionally well in the first tournament when Marty's won, and I remember JJ Gagliano using it for UCT, and Marty's then used it. It were all used exceptionally well. But now there seems some confusion in terms of the laws and what you're allowed to use it for and who's supposed to use it. Yeah. So I'm sure that'll get sorted out. Hopefully it's this week, and then we can go ahead and play some good rugby and keep things flowing.
Awesome. Sharks, we're going to take a little bit of a music break. I'm playing a lot of decent heavy metal, hard rock today, just because I felt like it. When we come back, we're going to be covering the World 7 Series and Six Nations before we get on to Super Rugby to close out the show. You are listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio, where Blokes Judge Rugby. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. Time to chat Wellington Sevens.
Yeah, see, as a South African, for us to get third is a bonus.
Yeah, I mean the big news is New Zealand defending their home their home territory yet again. I think it's the 8th time they've won the New Zealand leg of sevens in the history of the World Sevens Series, and unveiled an exciting new talent. Rico Ioane, just 17, with 2 tries in the final versus England and 6 over the weekend, certainly looks an exciting prospect out wide.
He's unbelievable, I tell you. And, the thing is about Gordon Titchens, he doesn't have a stress with, if you're old and you're good, you play. If you're young and you're good, you play.
Yeah, but he's also monstrous. It's not like he's not your average 17-year-old.
Yeah, no, but still, you can be big, but you also might not have the mental ability to do that sort of thing.
No, he's definitely got the skills. I mean, he even switches the ball into the right hands when he's, depending on which side of the field he's running down, so that he's got the fend ready.
It irks me, and so many professionals don't do it. But his interviews post-game were really good. He's got a decent head on his shoulders, so he will definitely, there's no doubt about it, he will move into ITM Cup and Super Rugby soon. I don't think he'll play Super Rugby this year, but next year he'll possibly play Super Rugby and possibly move on further.
Well, but I have a suspicion that they'll keep him at the very least in that setup until after the Rio Olympics.
Oh, yeah, but he'll still play ITM Cup though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, it's very, very interesting. And the New Zealanders, they lost a number of players. I mean, Captain Courageous DJ Forbes is out from the quarters or the semis.
They can't be the same DJ Forbes. They must have cloned him or rebuilt him or something. Because
he's out for Vegas, incidentally.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of injuries. Phil Mickelson, Mickelson was out as well. So they lost a lot of players, and they still managed to scrape it together. England put up a massive shout through the whole tournament, but fell short at the end.
They did indeed. Final score in the final, 27-21. Scoreline flattered the Poms a bit because they scored 2 tries basically after the contest had already been decided. But onto the Blitzbokke. They lost their opening game to France. That was their first defeat on the 7th circuit in 2 tournaments. Defended poorly in general in the pool stages, but somehow managed to sneak into the quarterfinals.
I just want to jump in there. They were leading, England, and New Zealand scored 2 tries at the end. To win, didn't they?
No. It was 27-7 with 2 or 3 minutes to play. No, they thumped them.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
No, it's all right. But as I said, the Blitzbokke sneak into the quarterfinals on the back of a sketchy forward pass in their final game versus the USA. To edge France on points differential after losing to them in their first game, and then came unstuck versus the Kiwis in the semi before eventually finishing 3rd after beating surprise semi-finalists Scotland.
Scotland I tell you, they did exceptionally well, and they came so close to beating England. England had to score 2 or 3 tries.
Yes, because the Scots ran out. They were 16-0 up or something.
And I tell you, it was massive fight by England and massive work. But the Scots, you could see their inexperience in the finals time, where they were just. It was clear they were just hang on. Like, listen, we just defend. We'll hang on. We'll make it. And you can't do that in most games, especially sevens.
No, absolutely, especially sevens.
Yeah, and once they were knocked out against South Africa, they were always going to get beaten in my mind because I think they were just emotionally drained.
Physically shattered.
But impressive work by them, and it's the funny thing is there was such a tight group with so many groups, and we didn't pick many of the winners. I mean, with France beating South Africa in the beginning, they didn't even make the knockouts.
Yeah, and then there was that pool there where we thought Argentina and Samoa would be the ones to come through, and instead it was Scotland and the Canadians that got up.
It was quite interesting. So, but I tell you, I'm looking forward to Vegas.
Indeed, me too. Because
South Africa looked flat. We were missing something, and maybe it was a travel arrangement that we made a mistake with, or something. We just, as a team, were not looking good, and I'm hoping we pick it up now.
But we also love the Vegas Sevens. We've won it 3 out of the 5 years that it's been hosted there.
And a good win last year, or the year before. It was
two back to back.
Yeah, but very exciting when we were under the pump against the All Blacks.
Justin Geduld is out injured, which means Pumas flyer Roscoe Speckman gets an opportunity. I'm looking forward to that because I quite enjoy watching that on the charge. New Zealand, for their efforts on winning their home tournament, have been drawn in a pool that says Fiji, New Zealand, Samoa, Wales.
What? Thanks for the favourable lineup, guys.
No, true story. The other pools are Argentina, Canada, England, and Kenya. And then the Blitzbokke, you'll love this shit, Japan, Portugal, Blitzbokke, and the USA.
Pretty handy, playing against the host. I think we played against him 2 years ago as well, so that's always entertaining.
And then the final pool sees Brazil coming in for this leg of the series, and they have the pleasure of dealing with Australia, France, and Scotland. And the one thing I did forget to cover, just in terms of after the Wellington Sevens, is the New Zealand have moved to within 7 points of the Blitzbokke into second place on the overall log. Fiji are third. Australia are a surprise fourth, with holding on to that all-important fourth automatic qualifying spot for Rio. England close behind them, and that's certainly an interesting and fun subplot to this season, knowing that the top four guaranteed a spot at Rio 2016 at the Olympic Games, and there's probably 6 or 7 sides challenging for it.
Yeah.
So,
I tell you, where it was so important for South Africa, I said it on after day one. I said it's so important after a poor start and we were not looking good, that we need to push all the way through and go as far as possible, because we needed those points to stay on top of the log. If we had fallen away in the group stages, New Zealand would have come out on top, and it would have been difficult to push them off. So we're still leading it now. We can put that behind us. We're still on top of the log and start moving forward. But Australia looking good. They've got a young side. They do the business. They're a little bit erratic. They'll sort themselves out. New Zealand, interesting at the moment. I wouldn't quite put them in the erratic category.
Rebuilding.
They're rebuilding, but they do it in a different way to everyone else, because I hate rebuilding. I can't stand that phase. I don't believe it belongs in the professional era, because there's no reason for it. But they're ticking over. And England are, they are erratic if there's anyone. They make the final one year, one tournament, the next tournament they don't. Fiji up and down, so... But they're pretty solid. So there's going to be 6 guys fighting out for 4 spots.
There is that Vegas Sevens. The South Africa again kick off the tournament this week with the first game, 2 a.m. start, and then weirdly it runs through until like 10:30 on Saturday night South African time. Obviously because of that's just in terms of the group stages, and then the semis and quarters and all that. Carry on into Sunday morning, so there's basically the better part of like 24 hours straight of
rugby,
of sevens rugby to watch.
It's the weirdest thing. I'll give you the schedule now. The schedule runs. Of course, it's going to take long to load. They have such odd breaks. It's almost like a 3-day tournament, and it's not big enough to be a 3-day tournament.
I think what you've got to keep in mind is that
Super Rugby.
We're also being told the South African times.
But if you look at the local times, the local times are also a little bit odd. So we have it it's done in 4 segments effectively.
Yeah,
it's done on one 6-hour segment, and then 2 3-hour segments, and then 1 6-hour segment, which it's unusual. They don't normally do it like that. They normally run it in 2 full days.
I think they run Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
No, they run Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday.
Yeah, for us as South Africans. Anyway, whatever. It's the Vegas Sevens is on this weekend.
Well, I'll let you know their local times. They run Friday. Well, they run from 4:00. They run until about 8:00.
On Friday evening.
Yeah. Of course, this is not opening up.
10 o'clock.
So, just explain. They run 4... Oh, this is a ball late. They run from 4:00 until...
9 p.m.
9:30. And then they run from 11 a.m. onwards. And then they have another rather large break for lunch, but or something like that, midday. But bearing in mind they're playing in Vegas, so it's a little bit warm there in midday.
It's also got to do with the international broadcast and when you can watch it. And
it works very well around Super Rugby. If you have a look at the Super Rugby schedule, you'll notice that no sevens game. I think there might be one game that conflicts with the Super Rugby game. So full up rugby for the week.
Lovely. On to, they call it rugby, the Six Nations. Rather inauspicious start to the Northern Hemisphere's annual international showpiece. England recovered from 10-0 down early on to outmuscle Wales up front. They scored 2 decent tries, although the defending by Wales on both of them leaves a bit to be desired. Before George Ford knocked over a couple of crucial penalties, and England won 21-16 at the Millennium Stadium. The biggest debate coming out of that, which you mentioned off air, which I wasn't quite aware of, I'd seen ructions and stuff about concussion tests, but I didn't realise why, was George North heading south on a couple of occasions to the ground.
Yeah, I do want to chat about the game afterwards, but George North picked up a kick to the head, completely accidental, but he was definitely, I think he was out, but he went for a concussion test, came back. He then picked up another knock later on in the game where on the way down you can see he is out, and he hits deck, goes off, comes back on. There's a problem there. There's a massive problem there. The rule states if you are unconscious or lose consciousness in any way, you are off. So it's such it's terrible. And the fact that it happened twice, the first time you can sort of understand, he took a knock, he didn't look like he was out, but he was lying there for a long time. He had a sore neck, he wasn't moving too much. He took a kick kind of in between his neck and his shoulder.
But what concerns me more about it now, knowing this, is because I was like, how the hell did he miss that tackle on Joseph the way he did? And now when you think about it, if he was not right in the head up to that point, and then I think he took a knock in that as well in missing the tackle and went down on that one. Anyway, England 21-16 at the Millennium.
I'm shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was pushing out backline stats and heights and weights and all sorts of goodies, and before the game, and I really didn't give England a flying snowball's chance in hell.
Well, and, not only that, on Friday afternoon when I was with you at the Sevens, we were watching the Hammies first side playing in their leagues, and Stevie Ray was waxing quite lyrically about how much he likes George Ford, or doesn't, I should say. Ford picks up man of the match.
Yeah, he was great, and I thought they were going to target him a little bit more in terms of the big ball carriers that the Welsh have. But I tell you, if any group of players is going to put their hand up, and also anyone's going to get the pats on the backs for the weekend as they loose trio, they loose force. James Haskell was sublime. He took it to them, and he nearly scored a try. If it wasn't for the post, he got absolutely smashed by the post, which stopped him from scoring a try. I was quite bummed for him, but they just took them apart, and I just couldn't understand why Wales couldn't get into the next gear, because they had everything going their way. Great venue, all the players, all the guys on form, and they just didn't pitch up.
Hadn't practiced with loudspeakers.
This is true.
Dan Bigger with a monster drop goal as well in that one.
Yes.
And then on Saturday, France struggled to a 15-8 win over a plucky Scottish outfit who defended like Trojans.
Surprised with that.
And Scotland's Fife with the only 5-pointer in the game. Lopez 5 penalties for the French. Not really much to talk about in that.
3 South Africans starting for the French. That's about it.
And there must have been 1 or 2 Kiwis and Dutchmen and the odd Safa playing for Scotland as well.
Yeah, there's a couple.
And then Ireland did what they had to do to see off Italy 26-3 in Rome, but they also only scored 2 tries, Conor Murray and Tommy O'Donnell.
And led only 6-3 at half-time. I think it was 6-3 or 9-3.
And it didn't look warm, so it's understandable. Ian Keatley kicked 14 points for the Six Nations champions. So what it means is Ireland topped the log on points differential because they don't do bonus points. Not that matters, because they average 2 tries a game.
It matters, but I tell you, the reason why I say it matters is because you look at someone like Wales now. For me, Wales and Ireland were pushing for the Six Nations. That's the way I looked at it. Yeah. I thought England would be there or thereabouts. Now that they've rolled Wales, it matters. England are in with a shot, because the winner of Friday's game, to me, was going to contest with Ireland for the Six Nations. Wales lose their opening game at home. You can't play catch-up now. That's the thing. When you have bonus points, you can play catch-up. You can trounce Italy with a bonus point try, and you can gain points. You can't do that in the Six Nations.
All I'm saying is that nobody scored what would have been a bonus point try this weekend. There was 2 tries, an average of 2 tries a game. Exciting stuff.
Interesting times.
I like to watch the 5-minute highlights packages, because that's about the only highlights that you actually get out of these games sometimes. This weekend, it looks like it could be a Valentine's Day massacre at Twickenham. England taking on the Italians. And with that England pack versus Italy, I have a suspicion that one could actually get ugly for the Eye Ties.
Yeah, the Italians, if they're going to stand up anywhere, it'll be in their pack.
Backyard.
No, in their pack, with their pack. So if they pitch up for the day and their pack does the work, it'll be interesting to see how England sort of adjust. But they will do enough to give George Ford decent ball. George Ford's not going to get dropped now. Danny Cipriani didn't get a second on the field on Friday. If I'm not mistaken.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I didn't see him come on. But that's what it is. Ford settled in. I'm loving the two centres for England. They're looking the business.
Yeah, and Lancaster said he's unlikely to change much this weekend, even with Brad Barrett and Jeff Parling back from injury.
Yeah, he doesn't change often. He very seldom, like, if you're in his side, you've got to be really toilet to get dropped. So,
and then also on Saturday, it's a pity for me on this one, because at the same time the Stormers are playing the Bulls at Loftus, but Ireland-France at 7 o'clock Saturday evening could be an absolute humdinger if they play the kind of rugby that both those sides like to play.
Yes, but the French are away from home, don't forget that.
This is true.
This is a problem.
And then on Sunday afternoon, Scotland entertain Wales at Murrayfield, which that could be quite brutal, if nothing else.
That's I think the Scots are going to take a hell of a lot out of this past weekend. And looking at the Welsh performance, they're going to take positives out of that too, and attack the Welsh. And the Welsh have got a point to prove now. They still want to hunt for the Six Nations. England are going to lose somewhere along the line. They hope they lose to Ireland and Wales then beat Ireland. So it's all up.
But let's not keep in mind that Scotland look capable of upsetting somebody, because they don't look like they're going to leak many, and and I'm not saying they're going to run away with one, but you wouldn't be surprised to see them win a game like 9-6 at a freezing cold
Scottish way.
Yeah. But they certainly look like they've got the ability to cause one, maybe two upsets this year. Italy are never far from picking up a scalp when playing at home, and you never know with the French. They've won one, and they could suddenly just click and run away with it and take the Grand Slam. Anything's possible with that mob. Right, that's that with all of that rugby. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Super Rugby, because yes, feel it is almost here.
Feel it.
You're listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll be back after a little bit of Guns N' Roses. Chat to you then. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. It's the home stretch of this week's show, and we're going to be talking Super Rugby. Quite apt that we talk about green grass and pretty girls, because it kicks off on Friday morning with the Crusaders versus the Rebels, and I, for one, cannot wait.
Yeah, I was just going to say I can't wait. It's going to be a crack. It's been too long, and just all the excitement. There's been a hell of a lot of rugby. There's been some very exciting rugby, I think, with the European stuff and the Six Nations and Sevens and, of course, the Tens. I mean, that's exciting. But we've all been waiting, all of us in the Southern Hemisphere have been waiting for one thing, and that's for Super Rugby. And we want to get this year going, this World Cup year, and it's now. It
is. Just a few things to touch on before we chat about the teams and prospects and predictions and all of those things. Dwayne Vermeulen cleaned up the SA Rugby Awards as expected, and Andre Pollard mopped up behind him.
Yes, and after that, Western Province franchise, Sinatlo with Sevens player, Province Curry Cup with Team of the Year, Johan Ackerman Coach of the Year, and Ronaldo Bortma, young player, new player or something.
Yeah, or Vodacom Cup player. It was something, one of those things.
But all guys, everyone that won deserved it. Let's be honest. I thought in terms of Team of the Year, I thought Western Province did very well and they won it, and yes, but I thought a couple of other sides might have deserved it. I thought the Lions were exceptionally good this year. I thought the Sevens boys for winning the Commonwealth Games. I mean, I don't know what more you need to do to get Team of the Year.
And then also the Jimmy Stonehouse with the effort the Pumas put in the Curry Cup. I know they fell away at the end.
He must have been with the running for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and we've actually lost him to Japan moving forward. I thought he might end up in a Super Rugby franchise sooner rather than later.
He'll be back, don't you worry about it.
No, I'm sure. And then the other thing is the landmark agreement that has been reached between SARU and the 5 Super Rugby franchises will see many of the top Springboks rested during Super Rugby. They're following the New Zealand way of managing the workload of the top players. It's taken New Zealand set up their policy ages ago, last year in fact, but it's taken to the 11th hour for SARU to manage to convince the Super Rugby franchises to agree to a similar setup. There's no apparent limit in the number of matches some of the box will sit out, and the resting periods will exclude, and I can't believe they actually put this in there, this is the last part of this paragraph because I shit you not, this is verbatim, will exclude any Super Rugby playoff matches, that makes sense, and any bye weeks. What are you on about? Okay. They're not playing in the bye weeks.
No, but what they want to do is they want them to rest from training during a bye week. But still, I can see.
And then the key...
maybe Dwayne will run it for the Bulls. You never know.
Yeah. The key stipulation, though, is that no player will play more than 5 consecutive matches. No player will play 5 consecutive matches. So none will play more than 4 consecutive. Which I think is a good move, personally.
And you said that's excluding a bye week.
Yes.
So they can't play 2 and then a bye and then 3. So they'd have to maybe break that up. Maybe that's where that comes from too.
Yeah, and there's usually travel in a bye week.
Yeah.
They usually are traveling long distance.
Yeah. That's. I'm glad. Listen, we needed to do it. There's no doubt about it. And Hanneke Ma's got to rest some players.
No, absolutely, and it looks like finally Rossi seems to be doing something that he's being paid to do in terms of managing the whole setup. But the biggest shock of the week. News that former SA Under-20 star and promising Bulls behemoth Jacques du Plessis has signed for Jake White's Montpellier in a 2-year deal worth a reported R5 million a year. The Bulls didn't have the financial clout.
A year?
Yeah.
Wow.
The Bulls didn't have the financial clout to hang on to him. By all accounts, he had his nose out of joint anyway when Lapis Labuschagne joined the setup and was being paid 4 or 5 times what his contract was. The kid does, however, say he'll be back in 2 years to chase a Bok jumper. Hanneke Ma apparently even got on the phone to try and convince him to stay. But at the end of the day, money talks and big boys walk.
Well, you know what? I just want to add my 2 cents to this. He's played for the SA Under-20s, so he cannot play for another side unless he exploits the sevens loophole that World Rugby have put into place for eligibility, which he doesn't quite strike me as a sevens player. So I don't think he'll be playing for the French sevens anytime soon. However, he's a youngster. He's going to go there and he's going to get 2 years of top-class rugby and good experience.
And 10 million rand.
And 10 million rand.
At the age of 20.
They also manage their players a lot better there. The French squads, they rotate very, very well. He's going to come back a better and a well-rounded player. Knowing he cannot stay there and play for France will definitely bring him back, because if he's doing really well over there, Hanneke Ma is going to beg and plead for him to come back here so he can get capped, and then I'm sure he'll bug it off again afterwards. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I'd rather our youngsters are playing and getting it and seeing where they are, as opposed to leaving them dormant for 2 years, playing age group rugby, and then we all turn around and go, see, he never really made it. So,
yeah, look,
not the worst idea, but for 10 million rand,
yeah, it's just frustrating in that we all know the prospect that he is. Anyway, he's gone for 2 years, and Jake White sounds like he's got a big shopping list and could be taking a lot more.
Lots to talk about there.
In other news, the Sharks continue to bring back former players, and they've now signed Michael Klaassen from Toulon and Jean Daisel's back from Japan. That's not too unexpected. Most of those guys go and play Japan and then come back to Super Rugby. It seems to be a standard thing that goes on in South African rugby these days. But the Klaassen thing surprised me. I understand in terms of the Sharks and their scrum half scenario with Conrad Hoffman and Reinach, the only 2 real options they've got floating around at the moment, because as we know, Charles McLeod left at the end of last season. So anyway, they've brought their back. I can't really complain about this one too much, because both of them are Springboks rather than having played for other countries. Then Francois Ace is going to lead the Cheetahs. Dean Greyling is out of the Bulls opener. Damon de Allende looks like he'll be fit for the North-South derby on Saturday. And the Reds thumped the Saders 35-12 in a warm-up game, playing a second-string injury-ravaged side with Carmichael Hunt at fly-half playing against Dan Carter.
Can't read into it.
No, I know, but still, the interesting news. So, Super Rugby starts this weekend. Crusaders Rebels at 8:35 on Friday morning, and we will be doing commentary with Balls.
Yes, we will. Actually, you can tune in to us and have a listen to
here on Loud Radio.
Yeah, and listen to some alternative commentary and hear what blokes on the couch have to say about it.
And then after that, Brumbies Reds, followed by the Lions Canes in Joburg. That has every possibility of being some thoroughly entertaining Friday evening viewing.
Yeah, unlucky for the Canes, they have to travel straight up. But someone's got to do it in this setup, and it should be a crackerjack of a game. And I tell you, the Joburgers and the Lions supporters are all talking up a big game. You know, the whole country is pretty amped to see the Lions do well. They had a great Super Rugby last season. They had a pretty decent Currie Cup, losing in the final, unfortunately. But signed a core of their really, really good players on for the year. So they're looking the business. Don't be surprised if the Canes get their Super Rugby start off to a loss.
Saturday morning, another entertaining game, Blues Chiefs. Then it's the Sharks versus the Cheetahs in a potential banana skin for the Sharks, because the Cheetahs seem to like to come to Durban and cause problems.
They do it more often than not.
Yeah. And then in the cracker on Saturday night, Bulls versus Stormers, before the reigning champion Tars entertain the Force on Sunday morning South African time.
I think that game is going to be a cracker. I think the Bull Storm is going to be the usual. It's going to be a great South African game to watch. It's going to be hard. It's going to be full of it and well entertaining. But I think Sunday is going to be a cracker. The Force owe the Waratahs. The Force had a great season last season. They kind of fell by the wayside towards the end of the tournament. They've learned from that. They've been training hard, and everyone has, and getting going. And what a great way than to go and beat the Super Rugby champs on opening day.
It's not going to happen, though.
Couldn't have been written better. I don't know about that. I don't think the Force are going to get thumped. They'll be in it. And they'll be in it with 15 to go, and then it's as good as anyone's game.
Based on history and the opening week or two, we know that nobody really gets thumped.
I know it's tight, and you take your chance, you win.
And everyone's still sketchy and scratchy. And
Rebels over Crusaders, not so much, but
well, they've upset them before. Can't see it
true.
happening in Christchurch as much as the likelihood in Melbourne, but that's not to say it won't. And the Rebels, they've always had the propensity to cause an upset, and they've certainly strengthened their squad and had some continuity in terms of coaching and all the nonsense that went on with them last year. That one, as you say, they could be a bit tight to call. Me personally, I think the Saders will edge that one by 12 points.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I think with 2 tries, that's about right. Yeah, 12.
Brumbies Reds, always likely to be a bit of niggle in this one. And
it's at that dodgy place in Canberra as well.
It is, but these two love to fight it out is the word. Have a crack, have a dig. The skullduggery.
A lot of history between the two over the years anyway, and between the two states as well.
Yeah, and I think they were 1-1 last season when they played each other, and they both won away from home, off the top of my head, but I stand corrected. I have picked the Reds to sneak this one by 3.
I'd like the Reds to win, but I say Brumbies by 5.
The Lions, as we said, entertain the Hurricanes, and it could well be like one of those 56-60 games.
Yeah.
And by that
Remember
I mean
the Chiefs last year.
Yeah, by that I mean 56 for one and 60 for the other. I've actually picked the Canes to sneak this one by 5.
I got Lions by 10.
And then Saturday morning, you wouldn't be surprised to see the Blues and Chiefs draw, but I have gone for the Blues to edge it at home by 4 points.
Blues by 8.
I've picked the Sharks to get up over the Cheetahs by 1.
Sharks by 15.
Oh, brave call. brave call. Bulls, Stormers. I've picked the Stormers to go to the Highveld and sneak it by 3. I just think that they have... more continuity. They're riding on the back of an outstanding Currie Cup campaign, obviously winning the competition. The Bulls have a few changes. At the same time, they do have Pollard. It depends where they play him, at 10 or 12, with Lou for sheer starts and Pollard's on the bench because they're resting him. There's also the news, obviously, with the Jacques Duplessis leaving. Flip van der Merwe has also announced as he's off to France. And there's a lot of new young faces in that Bulls setup. At the same time, anything's possible. So that's why I think it'll be a lot tighter than the Stormers running away with it. So I've gone Stormers 3.
I think the Bulls, their driving Maul, when we saw it against Saracens, was unbelievable. They got a problem at scrum time, but
even more so with Schreling out this weekend.
Can the Stormers capitalize on that? And I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can take the Bulls' problems at scrum time and turn it in their favour. That's my only issue.
Well, Ruan Botha looks like he will start for the Stormers, even though he hasn't played in the warm-up games. Scarro's back from injury. Kitshoff is looking good, although he's also announced that he's off to Bayern, I think, which I found strange because I always thought there was the potential that he would end up in a green jumper, but maybe green and red clash too much.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Stormers as well. Having said that, I think the Bulls, it's going to be quite tight. I think the Stormers by 4.
And then I've got the Tars to get up by 9 over the Force on Sunday morning.
Force by 5.
Oh, really? Calling the upset early.
I called 2.
Folks, the Driving Maul, we've got our own Super Brew pool up and running. It's called #Driving Maul on Super Brew. The pool code is PERKRISK, PERKRISK. Get in there. If we get over 50 competitors, we will have some data packages available from Cybersmart for local ADSL users. By local, I mean South African based. Sharky, enjoy all the rugby this weekend. I will see you on Friday morning on my couch. Literally, we're going to be doing Blokes on the Couch from a couch. For the Saders Rebels and then the Brumbies Reds, I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's going to be a cracker. I can't wait. And it's a long weekend of no sleep and lots of rugby if you want to watch it all.
Indeed. Well, folks, it's been edition 2 of Driving Maul 2015, streaming to you live on Loud Radio every week, 11 a.m. Central African Time. Driving Maul, where blokes judge rugby. Catch you next week.